You're listening to the Femcast podcast, the podcast for women who are truly ready to drop the paralyzing perfectionism and self-doubt and just live their best hot mess life. Let's do this. This podcast is listener discretion advised for mature content and coarse language. Whatever. Hey you guys, what is up and welcome back to the show. I am so excited and grateful to have you here. And I am also very excited and grateful for our guest today. She is none other than my good friend, Sarah Mack. Sarah is a writer and creative business mentor who works with coaches, healers, and artist entrepreneurs who are ready for six-figure years, more freedom, and fun in life and business. She supports creatives to sell high-ticket coaching offers and digital courses and attract dream clients on repeat by sharing her authentic story online, which she's going to bless us with today. Originally from the UK, Sarah now lives in LA, and she's also a singer, songwriter, rapper, video artist, and host of the Creative Magic Club podcast. So make sure to check that out. I will leave all her links down below so that you can connect and follow her online. Sarah's going to be sharing an amazing story with us today. It is a story that I wish I could tell my grandchildren if I had any. And it's all about how she met her partner in the most miraculous way, probably in a way that would make my mom's head spin if she ever were to find out about it. So here she is, the magical and inspirational Sarah Mack, and her epic love story right here on the Femcast. Sarah, welcome to the Femcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. You're one of my biz besties and one of my people
life besties,
biz besties, people who keep me in line in so many freaking ways. It's unimaginable, but hallelujah, I found you.
I feel the exact same.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here today because in the plethora of stories that you have to tell, and you have so many stories, I love your stories. There's one that is truly unique to you, and that would probably make my mom scream at me for not putting a roommate ad out sooner. But I'm gonna leave you to tell it because this is mind-blowing to me, because this basically blows all the advice that I've gotten out of the water. Now, this is not to give anybody any false hope, obviously, and I don't want to give too much away here, but just, you know what, I'm talking too much. Please tell people why I've invited you onto the show. You have a very interesting relationship tale, and you're here to tell all about it. I'm so excited. Tell us.
You know what's funny? I told this story on another podcast this morning.
Did you?
Yeah. And it's one of those stories that I feel like it's going to have its time. Maybe it's its time,
Maybe.
For me to share it more, because it is such a good story. So, and remind me to preface this with the manifestation, partnership manifestation work I did. I'm going to come back to that, but I'll tell the story, because it wasn't just I was intentional around calling in my person, but this was not part of the plan. I put an ad on Craigslist when I was studying my master's in Montreal. Our roommate decided to move out, and we were I was living with my best friend, and we were really clear that we wanted somebody who was good vibes. And so we put a lot of love into the Craigslist ad, and this was before I did any type of copywriting. So testament to my writing skills. We were let's just really clearly articulate who we are and what the vibe is in the apartment. And, we were just stating the facts, right? We were being accurate. We collect disco balls. We love having dance parties. We love, sitting around the dinner table, having long philosophical conversations with our friends from all over the world. And Albor saw it. He was in Montreal studying his master's in immunology, and he was living alone, and he just wanted to live with roommates so he could connect with more people. And So he came, rang on the doorbell, came for an interview, and he was the only person that had responded to our ad. So I was really trying to sell the apartment. I wasn't really paying much attention to him. So I didn't like, you know, I didn't really notice him. I was like, you're fine. We just need someone to pay the rent. So please move in. And apparently
that's the only criteria, rent paid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And apparently I really made an impression on him. And he was like, even though we were like, this is the best apartment. We love this apartment. We're so lucky to live here. He was like, I thought your apartment was kind of skanky, but I thought you guys were really great. So I decided to move in. It was an old apartment, but I love that. I had a lot of character, in the plateau in Montreal. And then the day he moved in, well, he had moved in, I was traveling. I got back from my trip. He like knocked on my door in the morning. I'd arrived like late that night, and I walked out of my door and I looked him in the eye, and I instantly was like, I'm in love with this person.
Oh my
And he
God.
does have like very dreamy eyes. He has like big
I've met him, it's true.
And I was like, that's a terrible idea. Here's my roommate. I'm not even gonna go there. That's way too messy. So
in the context of bad ideas, that was probably one of the worst. Go on.
Yeah, so I resisted for like 3 months, and we just became good friends. Like we were hanging out, having so much fun together. It was kind of unconscious, because consciously I was like, there's no way I'm going anywhere near my roommate, because we had such a good thing going. We were having so much fun. It was such a great dynamic in our apartment.
Did your other roommate know how you were feeling? Like, did you tell her? Okay.
Yeah, I told her, but I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to go there. And then at Christmas that year, so that was like, 3 months after, and my roommate left for Christmas. So it was just us in the apartment.
Bad idea.
We got it on, and I thought maybe this was going to be like just a Christmas fling. I knew he'd been, casually seeing somebody, but it wasn't serious. And he'd been bringing lots of girls home from the bars, which I was well aware of because he was my roommate. So
did they sound happy when they were in the room with him?
Oh, I no.
Is that too much information? No. Okay, let's not do that to him.
I didn't hear, no.
Okay.
But then when I had this feeling, it was like end of the holidays, this girl that he'd been seeing was like, due to be back in town, and my spidey senses started like prickling, and I just had this feeling in my stomach that it just dropped, thinking of him with somebody else. And so I remember we were looking after my friend's cat, Maddie. She's like the famous community cat from our friendship group in Montreal. We were looking after her, and I remember like scooping her up. She's this big, fluffy, ironically Persian cat. And I went in and sat in his room, and I was like, I'm interested in seeing where this could go.
Yeah.
And like, no pressure, one day at a time, no expectations. But if we're going to continue to explore this, it has to be monogamous. Because that would just fuck with my head.
Yeah.
Knowing that he was like out staying with another girl, like that would just be too much energetically for me to be dealing with in my own home. And he was like, okay. He's like, that's fine. He's like, I'm definitely interested in seeing where this is going to go, and like no expectations, exclusivity. I'm on board with that.
This is just too easy.
I know.
Like, for all the people who say, he's not going to knock on your door while you're sitting in your living room in your pajamas. Actually, he can.
Literally rang the doorbell while I was sitting in my pajamas.
I threw that in. Were you actually in your pajamas when you answered the door?
I mean, my general fashion goal is to feel like I'm always in pajamas.
In pajamas, yeah. You have said that to me numerous times. I
can pass for being out in public.
I mean, it's mind-blowing because there's so many people out there that, and I'm not encouraging people just to sit on their sofa, because and there's a preface to this, which you're going to share, which is really important, I think. But for all the people who have said countless times, you're not going to meet him in your living room, I say to you, please listen to this fucking episode. Okay, so let's backtrack a little. First of all, I applaud you for being the one to take the initiative and go like 2 feet in and say, hey, listen, I'm down for this, but you know, these are my boundaries, right? Which is never an easy conversation, especially with a roommate. So that must have taken a lot of courage for you, I think, right? Like, tell me a little bit about.
Scary.
Yeah,
it was scary. Like my hands were shaking, and yeah, it definitely felt challenging.
Yeah.
To say that, but obviously I'm glad that I did.
Right.
And it would have been way worse if I hadn't had that conversation, and it would
definitely
have been
because if you think about it, you would have been just torturing yourself mentally back and forth.
Yeah.
With him, you know, being with you, and then your roommate coming back and him seeing the other person. Like there was a whole can of worms there that really, like, when you actually boil it down, the other would have been way harder for you to move through. This was like a rip off the Band-Aid kind of moment, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, like anything, like it's the non-attachment that is like where you're in your power, you know. It's like you have 100%. To be willing to accept. I had to take the risk that he was going to be like, no, that's not going to work for me, and I had to be willing to walk away. I think you always have to be in a state of being willing to lose something in order to be in relationship with it in a powerful way, whatever it is, whether it's a partner, a friendship, a career, a job, money. Like you always have to be in a position where I'm okay without this external thing. And only then can you really come from a truly empowered place in relation to other people, places, and things. Tell me a little bit about, because I know, you know, obviously we talk tons about manifestation. If I pulled up some of our old texts, oh my God. So, I mean, you know, leading up to this moment, right? What was your relationship experience before him? And then what did you do to change that? Hey, gorgeous. I hope you are loving this episode so far. We are going to get right back into it. But before we do, let me ask you, are you through with entertaining toxic, emotionally unavailable relationships and situationships that will never see you as anything more than just an option? Are you ready to uplevel your standards and bid farewell to the era of it's complicated relationships once and for all? Can you imagine what it would be like to walk around confident as fuck, knowing that you're surrounded by more loving and fulfilling relationships that always treat you like you're the only woman in the room? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you're exactly who I created my Uplevel and Flow private mentorship program for. The online one-on-one coaching program that has been specifically designed to help you uplevel all your relationships and your life. Whether you're looking to attract more loving and fulfilling relationships or uplevel existing ones, this program is for you. My Uplevel and Flow mentorship program will take you from the woman who is constantly settling for less than she wants and deserves in her relationships and in her life, who has pretended to be content with the it's complicated relationship status for far too long, to the woman who dares to raise her standards and expect more out of her life and her relationships and actually get it. Never ever chase anyone again. Be the one, and the one will chase you. Send me a DM at the Femcast on Instagram or email me at maria@thefemcoach.com for more details. Let's get back to today's episode. So I've always been like a serial monogamist. Ever since, like, I remember as soon as I turned 14, I was like, I want a boyfriend, but I like wasn't really into any of the boys. I was just like, please let there be a boy who's like I can be into for me to date. My first relationship was like 3 years. Then my next relationship was 5 years. So I'm one of those people who's just like always been in a relationship. So when I moved out to Canada and that my last serious relationship ended because of that, I set the intention. I was like, I just have to be single. I have to like do that for myself, or like not just jump into the next, relationship with the next person. Also, I wanted to do the North American thing and like try and be in an open relationship. Turns out I'm not very good at that, because I still like literally I arrived in Montreal and like one of the first guys I met was this like super cute Quebecois filmmaker, and I was like, and I started dating him.
Yum.
And then I was like, I don't need anybody else. Like, this is fine, you know, like it wasn't serious. He knew from the beginning that it was open, because I would go and work in Vancouver in the summers. And so, you know, I would have like flings when I was over there. But I think it was just important for me to not just get really attached and like wrap my life up in somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And it was a really great moment in my life. Like, doing my master's was the first time anyone ever asked me, like, what do you really want to focus on? You know, I had freedom to like choose what I was going to study. And in the UK, our like undergraduate degrees are kind of different than they are in North America, where you kind of have a bit of more of an option here.
Yeah.
Like, there, you sign up for a subject and they tell you what you're going to study. They're like, you can either choose this course or this course. They're not like, study whatever you want. So it kind of gave me an opportunity not only to have way more freedom in my schedule, but actual, you know, time to explore and to really ask myself, like, what do I want? Like, what is really interesting to me? What is really lighting me up? Of all the things I can do, you know, I was like, oh, well, I might as well pick the things that I most enjoy and that I'm the most excited by.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just like a very creatively alive time for me. And living in Montreal, where like my cost of living was so low,
mm-hmm.
and I had time, and there was just like the artistic community there is just so vibrant, and I was so inspired. You know, had taken up photography. I was like making short experimental movies, and I just felt like I was really creatively self-expressed, which is something I had really been longing for.
Mm-hmm.
And hadn't really had in my career in film production before that, you know, where I was just working long hours, like driving trucks and moving furniture and like yelling into a radio on set. So I really felt like I was, and that's when I started doing The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which is like the most life-changing
We've done
book
that together
ever. I've done it 4 times now. And, you know, just that process of journaling and self-reflecting every day and really connecting to yourself and actually listening to yourself and being like, what's bothering you? What's coming up? And like, what do you want? And really seeing the desires that bubble through. And then actually having the freedom and the mobility to be able to give a lot of those things to myself. Like, I really felt like I was being fully myself, and I was giving to myself the things that really made me happy. And so I really felt like I was like living my best life. You know, I was living the life that I really wanted to live. And I actually dated. So when I met Albors, I very unconsciously turned off the guy I was dating. It wasn't a conscious thing in my mind where I was like, oh, I'm really into this guy and I don't want to see this guy anymore. I was like, suddenly I'm not feeling this anymore.
Yep.
So I broke it off with him, but I wasn't seeing Albors. So I dated this other guy in the interim who I met at like an after party, which is never a good place to meet people to date. And, you know, he was just like, he just flaked on me and like said he was going to do one thing and then didn't do something, like went on a big night out and didn't invite me. And when we were supposed to be hanging out together, and he, you know, he like bailed on me to hang out with his friends, and it made me so angry and I felt so disrespected. And I was like, you know, it was one of those moments where I was like, this is really like, I'm not standing for this. Like, it made me angry, you know? And I was like, I am like, no fucking way am I ever settling for this ever again.
Amen.
Like, you know, and that I feel like those moments are really like energetically, they're like big breakthroughs, right?
Totally.
And I was like, I know the next person I'm gonna invest my time in, like, it just helped me get clear on what I want. I was like, ugh, this is not what I want. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
What do you want? And so, you know, I think it was probably like, because I was, you know, on very limited income at the time. I was on my like bursary for my master's, but I invested in some type of manifestation, like manifesting the one, like manifesting your soulmate course, you know, through some like email marketing funnel. And I don't remember the specifics of it. I think it was like 4 videos, and, you know, you just had to like make the list. Yeah. And I made the list and kind of forgot about it. And so the funny thing is I was already hanging out with Albors at this time. So I think just being around him was like raising my standards, because he is an incredible guy, you know?
Oh, he so is in every way.
So, yeah. So, and then I think obviously by the time we got together, I was like, oh, he's like everything on my list and more.
Yeah.
And also so many other things that I never would have put on my list. You know, like we're so different. If someone had been like, you're gonna fall in love with a scientist, I would have been like,
yeah.
I would have been like,
so can we say what his career is? Because this is every mom's like dream for her daughter. Like, what does Alborz do?
He's a doctor. But I was like,
a doctor
so
knocks on her door.
No, I was like really against him becoming a doctor from the beginning. I was like, you're gonna hate it. Like, you're just gonna have to work so hard. And like, you know, he has a very artistic soul. And I could like, and I think because he's a Leo rising, I'm a Leo. So I always saw that in him. And like, we really connect over art and culture.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's like a big part of his personality. So I would always have little fantasies for him just like breaking out of medicine and like becoming an artist. And actually his North Node, I forget which placement it is, but that is a part of his dharma, is like his past life karma is medicine. And then he's in this lifetime, he's going to shift into more creative work. And I can see that happening. You know, he's like very interested in entrepreneurship and he's like dabbling. So I definitely see that for him. And I think I've always connected to that part of him. And, you know, there's a reason why he's attracted to me. Is like, I am an embodiment of his rising sign.
Yeah.
So, you know, it makes sense. But yeah, I had huge resistance to him becoming a doctor. Obviously, like he went through medical school and then he went through 4 years of residency, which was absolute hell on earth.
Yeah. And that was a tough time.
I tried to convince him to quit multiple times.
And during COVID, he was in residency in New York City, right? So it's like, it's not a light workload by any means, right? It takes a toll on you.
Yeah, it was like 70 to 100-hour weeks, like really, really toxic work environment with like toxic leadership and, you know, emotional and like actual physical abuse where they're like, he's not allowed to eat, he's not allowed to drink, he's not allowed to freaking sleep. And he's like falling asleep at the wheel on his way home, you know, like horrendous.
Yeah.
But now he has a really great job, finally. And he's happy and he has slightly more normal working hours. And I'm grateful that he stuck it out.
I've watched you guys go through this evolution and it's just like so crazy, right? Because you guys were in separation at one point when you were stuck in Montreal during the pandemic. He was in New York City, you were coming back and forth. And it was just, you know, and he was in residency at the time and the toll that was putting on your relationship, like watching you come full circle to this place. It is just so like magical to see this. Like you can see the happy ending now, you know, for a while, not that you couldn't see the happy ending, but it was just, you know, this situation, as easy as it was that he knocked on your front door, it came with a ton of, you know, challenges. And I think the important thing is, you know, relationships are always going to take work and there's always going to be sort of mindset shifts that we need to make in order to be in a relationship. But I think what's really beautiful is that you've come to this place now where you're both these beautiful, like these two whole persons, like living their best life, like living out their dreams, doing what it is that they want to do, and sort of co-existing in those two worlds have come together so beautifully. Whereas for the longest time, it's been like kind of one's over here, one's over there. It's really nice to see, and not without a lot of work.
Yeah, no, relationships are a lot of work.
Yeah,
but so
sometimes I'm like, oh, I just get another pet. Tell me a little bit about, because I want to get into like what's in your head, like if we can backtrack to like the days before like you met Alborz and he literally knocked on your front door. You know, you said you were kind of like living your best life. You said something really important in that, you know, you were giving yourself what you needed. And I think a lot of the times, you know, we get into this pattern of thinking that if we meet this person, you know, they're going to, you know, complete, right? And I use air quotes, right? They're going to give us we're going to be able to do the things that we want to do with them. They're going to give us the freedom that we want. They're going to give us the stability, be the anchor and the security that we long and crave for. But you literally did that for yourself before having met him. And I think that's really important. And I also want to get an idea of like, what was your belief? Like when you met him, like, how did you feel about yourself and life? Like what was, if you had to caption it as an affirmation, like what would it be?
That's a great question. I was really on a high because, you know, so to backtrack, I first moved to Canada I did an exchange semester in 2006 in Toronto. And then I loved Canada so much that I applied for a 1-year work visa I went out to Vancouver in 2008, and then I got another one. And then, I had kind of like maxed out on work visas.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I applied for my master's because I really wanted to live in Canada. Like I'd built this amazing life there. I loved it. I really saw myself there. And, I think ever since that first visa where I literally had enough money to last me 1 month, I went out there because I wanted to work in the film industry. And it's really hard to get into the film industry in the UK. There's like a lot of competition. So I was very prepped to expect that in Vancouver, but it's not like that in Vancouver. It's like one of the main industries. There's every other person you meet in like coffee shops works in film. And so it was actually surprisingly easy for me to land work. And it was like a dream gig for me. I was like driving around in like beaches and mountains and working on really awesome projects, meeting so many great people. And I think that really instilled in me just this belief that like I can have what I want and like magic and miracles happen when you take leaps. Like that was one of the big, like really good things that happened in my life. And then so I applied for my master's at Ryerson and I got rejected. But then I applied at Montreal and I got accepted. And then they were like, international student fees are like 35,000 or whatever. And I was like, I just didn't have that money. And then I got a full scholarship. So it really just felt like a miracle. I was like, I really felt like I was meant to be there. And so I had just arrived to Montreal and I was definitely in a phase of my life where I was like, things just work out for me. And I just felt so grateful and I was so happy to be there and it was really exciting. And I think that was my mindset, it was like, I was just, and I think it's that immigrant mindset. Like when you get given an opportunity, you savor, you're like, the phrase that one of my friends uses is like an activity Nazi, where you're like, I must take all the opportunities, it's like, I will not say no. It's like from morning until night. It's like, I enrolled in all the courses. I enrolled in all the extracurricular activities because I was like, this is an opportunity that I've been given that's so unique that I wouldn't have if I lived at home. And I was so grateful for it. And I was just like eating it up. So I think, I was definitely in that mindset. And I didn't know anybody when I moved there, apart from my best friend who we moved in together. Well, she wasn't my best friend then. We literally had a friend of a friend and we connected that summer in Vancouver and realized we were both moving out there. She was my only connection and I didn't know her that well at the time. So I had that mindset of like, I was just so open and like I was putting myself out there and I was doing so many new things, putting myself in so many different new environments and like really choosing things that were exciting for me. And I was really in like a very big upward spiral of enjoying my life and living life the way that I really, really made me happy.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think what you said there was actually like really, really important because even though you met him again, not to say this repeatedly, even though you met him like literally knocking on your front door, you were actually still going out and doing the things that you love to do and taking part, like participating in activities you love to participate in, which I think is important because until we come into alignment with, you can't attract what you want to attract until you can kind of be in alignment with who you are and what you want to bring in, right? You have to be in alignment first. And you did that. Was it hard? Because, you said that you moved around. Like if anyone had challenges, like you had limited social circles, right? You were in a new place. Like, and we all make excuses. I make excuses all the time. I don't think I've left my apartment in 3 days. I've showered. There's nothing gross going on, but I've not left my apartment in 3 days, right? And it's so easy, especially as an entrepreneur, to just like get comfortable in your little like cocoon and not go out there. But it is really important to get out there and do the things that you want to do if you want to attract the kind of people that you want to attract. I think it's not about them not showing up at your front door. It's about what energy are you being in for them to show up. I think 100%. Is the key.
Because if I'd written a Craigslist ad that was like, I just like to stay home in my room and like, have our apartment nice and quiet and not really disturb each other, he probably wouldn't have answered the ad, Like I was already living a very desirable lifestyle. It was very magnetic, not because of the specific things I was doing, but like I was having so much fun. I think honestly, like that's my philosophy is like, if something feels hard, just pick something that's more fun.
Yeah.
A lot of the time things feel hard is because we actually are trying to do things that we don't actually want to do. So
Mm.
what are the things that you want to do? Like do
Yeah.
those. And yeah, find the path of least resistance there. And I think, yeah, sometimes it requires being willing to make a radical change, like moving to a new neighborhood or
It
like
does.
leaving a job or, like moving countries in my case. It's like
Yeah.
it was big moves that like really paid off because and I've seen this again for myself, we were living in the Bronx in New York because we had to live there for his residency placements because he was working between two hospitals. One of them was really far up north and it
Yeah.
was like really far away from my friends. And like I just didn't really vibe with the community that there was just nothing there, It's like very car dependent or like hours of time on transit. And I wasn't happy living there, and like my mood was down, my creativity was down, and like it impacted my business and it impacted my social circle and it impacted my health. And we just moved to LA in July, and I really took a stand for the neighborhood that I wanted to live in, because that's one thing I've learned is like I need to be in proximity where I can be kind of spontaneous, where I can access things without having to travel really far distances, where I'm like surrounded by people who are my community, who I feel really excited by and inspired by. And like that's huge, because when I have that and those needs are met for me and I'm inspired by the place that I live, then I have so much more energy and to do other things or like take on bigger challenges. So I think you really do have to be honest about what is making you happy and what isn't making you happy, and actually be willing to make the changes.
Yeah. And sometimes I think it's a bit of a stepping stone too, right? Like sometimes the thing that'll make you happy in that moment is it's such a little thing, and we try to overthink it, I think,
totally.
and we try to overanalyze it. But if you just do this one, like for me, sometimes if I'm in a funk and I feel like I'm low energy, like I'll put on my Spotify playlist, right? And I'll start listening to some music. And that's enough to get me to the next thing. And then the next thing gets me to the next thing and the next thing. And I think when you look at it in small baby steps like that, I think you go through it a lot easier. Because I mean, I know you've struggled with depression, anxiety. I've struggled with depression, anxiety. There are days where you just don't feel like doing anything, like at all. What's your best go-to, do you think, to kind of get you out of your funk?
Or always movement.
Yeah.
Always, like especially as a manifesting generator in human design.
Yeah.
It's like we generate energy.
Yeah.
And even just going for a walk or doing some gentle yoga, getting outside in nature. Like if I don't move my body every day, like the spiral starts going down, and it's just like constant movement, and not like pushing myself or doing crazy workouts. But I definitely see the correlation between the more I move my body in ways that feel really good, which for me is usually yoga and walking, and dancing. Like that spiral is just like the momentum starts going up and up and up and up and up. And when I increase the like not necessarily the intensity, but the quality, like sometimes working out a little bit, like doing a longer yoga class, or like instead of doing a 15-minute, doing a 30-minute, and occasionally doing like a full hour-long yoga class, like it makes a difference for me.
It does. And sometimes I think it takes a good 7 to 10 minutes to actually get out of that low energy feeling and actually start cultivating some energy so you can get a better workout in, right? I think.
Yeah, and breath work. Yeah, it's really, really like there's other is it called Othership? This app that I have on my phone, and they have like 2 to 3 minute breathwork exercises with some vibey music and someone giving you a pep talk over the top, and it's like just breathing. Like even if you're sick or like you feel really like physically heavy or exhausted or fatigued, just oxygenating your body, like you'll literally start having different thoughts, and it just creates the momentum in a different direction.
I gotta try that. Okay, listen, last question. And this is for the people who they're sitting there listening to this going, maybe I should get out there more and start dating. My relationship with online dating and how I feel about it. I make it blatantly obvious that I'm not a huge fan of online dating, but you wrote that Craigslist ad so intentionally and beautifully, and clearly it worked for you. If you were to give people 3 places to start, if they were going to write their online dating profile to really magnetize the partner that they would want, what would you tell them?
Oh, this is a great question. So what I tell all my clients, like, this is my job, right? I'm like a messaging
I love it.
and business mentor.
You're
and
writing my
consultant.
online profile if I ever get out there again.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, just tell the truth.
Yeah.
Like, tell the truth,
Yeah.
like, it's not hard. You are you. Your story is your story, and what you desire is what you desire.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's hard for people in relationships, because you're like, well, I don't want to like turn people off or miss out. Like, no, be honest. Like, be brutally honest about what Like,
Yeah. Better to turn them off
kids
now than 3 months from now when you're like hooked, right?
Exactly. If you really want to get married, say it. If you really want to have kids or you really don't, say it. If you like want to explore, say it. If you've got like kinks, say it, like be explicit. And I would just say, tell your story, and like tell people, like, share your vision. Like, what is your vision for your life? Like, what do you really want in your life? Like, what most importantly, what do you value? And get really clear on that for yourself. Like, what are deal breakers for you? What are the values that are just so inherent in all of the choices that you make in your life, whether it's family, location, like lifestyle, like when you like to have time off, when you imagine spending time together, like what you imagine doing together, what your hobbies are, what you're interested in your hobbies becoming, like socially, things that you're really into, and what else? Yeah, I would just tell people, like, if you zoom out, like, what are the things that you're most grateful for in your life and about who you are? I think that says a lot. And yeah, tell a couple of those stories, because that's really going to help people to connect to you. And I think creating that connection is key to attracting someone who really resonates with you.
Oh, I love that. There you have it. And hopefully everybody who uses that to create their online profile has a handsome, tall, dark knocking on their front door one day. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful to have you and so excited. I can't wait to have you back on the show. If any of you want to get in touch with Sarah, I will leave all her details down below. Thank you. Until next time, massive love, you guys.